Hello, 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 and welcome back. We have the year 2025, and I have my first guest for this year. A really, really cool techno producer called Danny Wabbit. I hope so. Is this right? Hello, Danny.
Hey, Robert. It's a pleasure to meet you, and it's a pleasure to be on the stream. Thank you guys for having me. And yeah, it's Wabbit. It's a bit of a weird and unusual name, but yeah.
Okay, then right into it. Why? What's behind the story, Wabbit? Danny Wabbit.
So the name Wabbit actually came from like my high school days, and it was because of there was a dubstep producer I really liked around that time who had the name like Dirty Rabbit, something like that. And I could never find him after that. It was just like one song. And I thought like, oh, if I ever was a producer, it would be cool to have something with Rabbit in my name, you know, when being 13 years old. So I used to listen to a lot of dubstep, and my friend was like, why don't you make it Wabbit? I was like, why Wabbit? And he's like, because, you know, in dubstep you have the wub wub sound. So instead of Rabbit, like Wabbit, I was like, oh, okay, that's funny. Let's do it. And I just stuck. I didn't really want to change it. I just kept it as is.
Yeah, makes completely sense. Like for me, like back in the days when I had all my names, yeah, my techno name was Rob Acid, and it came because I liked acid and I liked acid, so so it was Rob Acid, right?
Guys. I mean, it's that's the thing. I feel like sometimes with names now, it's a bit in this like the newer generation of artists. You have some like really crazy names, but like back in the days, I feel like also it didn't really matter. It's just like people also cared more about the music rather
100%,
than
yeah.
what your name was or what the name of the track was. It is what it is, you know. It was just to listen to the music. By the way, before we start the stream fully, I just want to apologize to everyone. My internet might not be the best. It's because my studio is situated in a place where the cell towers aren't that great and they're not so close by. So there might be some drops here and there in the audio and the visual. So just apologizing pre-hand.
Yeah, I think the people can understand you pretty well. I saw somebody was already complaining about the sound. It is what it is. We are underground, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, yeah, tell me a little bit like how old are you and how do you came to techno and like a little introduction for our viewer. Because actually,
yeah,
I and shame on me, I don't know you.
That's all right.
It's great to get to know you.
The pleasure is all mine. So, yeah, I'm 27. I actually recently turned 27 a month ago. And I've been producing for about 6 years now. It's definitely not even a fraction as close to how long you've been producing. You know, it's not repeating some of your presence, but like, yeah, I've been producing for about 6 years. I started off DJing when I was about 15. I really liked the concept of DJing, and I started with like hip hop, some R&B, trap, and stuff like that. And then I moved to Istanbul from the UAE. I was living in Dubai.
Okay.
Moving to Istanbul, I got into contact with some underground like it was at the time they were called like after hour clubs. So they would open from 3 a.m. onwards. And getting into that scene, there was a lot of like deep tech and some like very minimal tech house. Not the tech house and deep house you have now. It was a lot deeper and a lot more like groovy. And I really liked that. I was like, okay, I really like this. I want to start. So the owner of the club, which was also a friend of mine, was like, oh, you know, you should get into production. That's where it's like really at if you like this kind of music. And I was like, oh, okay. So I started looking for like different artists that inspire me and just searched around. And the first artist that really got me into, I would say, like techno was Oliver Huntemann.
Okay.
And He has this track called Tranquilizer. Until today, it's one of my like top in the top tracks, and it's such a crazy track, like in terms of like sound design and the flow and everything. And just listening to that, I was like, okay, I like this, and this is how I want to start out. So I just, you know, nonstop produce, cut away from my social life, and all I did was eat, sleep, breathe, and produce music until I got myself to the point where I started to see the progress of people vibing with my music and, you know, different artists, getting support from lots of great labels. So it's been, yeah, a fun journey. I definitely don't feel I'm at the level where I want to be. I still think there's a lot of growth, and I think as an artist, it doesn't matter what you do, just an artist in general, you never stop learning and you never stop growing. So
100%.
yeah, it's a beautiful road ahead, I think.
I can tell you from my experience, I'm doing music for 35 years, and I personally feel like I'm an advanced beginner. Right? So I know a little bit, but still so much to learn. And I released over 1,000 tracks, but still, you know, advanced beginner is we have to learn, right?
I definitely, I could definitely understand, because I always feel that way, and I never understood how some people could feel like satisfied. I always listen and I'm like, oh no, like my biggest and harshest critic is myself. I listen, I'm like, no, it's trash.
Of course.
So yeah, it's been great. It's been fun.
And then I heard you moved to Berlin, right?
Yeah, so I moved to Berlin about a year ago, and the reason behind my moving was because at the time I was with an agency, and my agent had told me, he was like, you know, being an artist living in Istanbul, it's really hard to get bookings because of the flight prices and, you know, just your geolocation. And I was like, okay, what's the next step? What do you think? He was like, I think you should move to Berlin or somewhere in Europe, you know. And he had some help here. He got me some help to be able to move here to Berlin. And yeah, I've been here for the past year. I really like it. I think for me, I don't look at like Berlin or Germany in general as, ooh, I'm coming here to be a techno artist. Rather, I'm coming here to be able to pursue my already established career. Like, if anyone were to ask me, like, if would you recommend me to move to Berlin to make my career for myself as an artist, or to grow with my collective, or to do this or do that, I wouldn't recommend it, because I feel like it's such a saturated city, you know, especially when it comes to techno. And after the whole UNESCO thing, it's like everywhere you look, there's a DJ and a producer. I would rather say build the foundation back home or wherever you're based, and then move to a city like Berlin whenever you already have some kind of placement, you know. So when you're here, you're not looked down upon like every other person, you know. You have some sort of value to offer as well to the city. So yeah, I think it was a good step for me in my career, and yeah, I'm looking forward to a lot more years for now here.
Okay, now the most important question: how do you like the weather in Berlin?
To be honest, I think the only one thing that kind of pushes me off is just the rain. Like, I generally don't like rain, but I don't mind the gray either. I like the gray because it always feels like I'm in this really dramatic movie. You know, every time I walk around Berlin, it always feels like it's some like intense drama, and I'm like,
That's
whoa, okay.
true. Yes.
So I really like that vibe. It translates a lot in my music. But apart from that, it's just the rain. You know, the random spots of rain that happen here and there. That's a little bit annoying, but apart from that, it's okay. I've gotten used to the weather.
Okay.
Perfect studio weather.
Yeah, because I basically run away from this weather and moved to Malta, where the sun is.
Yeah, the sun is always right, and the food is amazing. The food, oh my god!
Have you been here too? Have you been to Malta?
Yeah, I was actually there in August or September. I had a show there.
Yeah. In which
It
club?
was
Do you remember?
in the Giampula village.
Okay, one of the biggest.
Yeah, and one of the outdoor ones, the one where they do the Glitch Festival at, the outdoor stage, the boiler room stage, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there for about 3 days, and I can't lie, I loved it. Like, especially the food, oh my God. Like, the food was off the hook. It was just crazy. It was crazy. Yeah.
It's a small island, and there's just sunshine and food and relaxation.
For me, that's ideal. If you were to ask me, I would be like, yeah, I would pick something like that, just somewhere away from everybody where I could have like the perfect studio and I could just lock myself in the studio every day and just not give a care about the world. But it's just that, like, my girlfriend, she's a city girl, and she likes around the city. So for me, I'm like, oh, I want to live on the outskirts. She's like, oh, let's live in the city. The city is nice. So you have to, find somewhere to meet in the middle. And Berlin is one of those cities where you have the isolated parts where, closer to the outskirts, like Schöneweide and stuff like that. And then you have like the more inner city where you're like right in the chaos. So it's a nice mix of both, which is, I like that about it.
Yeah. And you have a lot of kind of beautiful parks as well.
Oh yeah.
So
I'm staying next to the biggest forest here, which is like Wuhlheide, which is just beautiful, like you just walk outside, go take a walk in the forest, all that fresh oxygen, and just come back. When you go into the city, you look at the inside of the city and you're like, yeah, it's nice to live in Friedrichshain, but like, take me back to the forest, please.
Right. Actually, that's what one of the real things that I miss from Germany, the forest. I loved this forest. Back then, where I was living, I was like close to the forest, and before I started my studio day, every day I was walking for 1 hour and getting my head clear. This was nice.
It does you good. It does you good, especially when it's just finished raining and you have this like fresh weather, like everything smells amazing. Yeah, those days are the best.
True. Okay, so because I see we have already our visitor here. Hello, everybody. We are here to listen to some music, right?
I'm looking forward.
Yeah,
I'm excited, but I just want to warn everyone, I'm a bit of a harsh critic, so please don't take what I say to heart. I think that being a good artist means you take criticism, and instead of letting it stop you from growing or to put you off, instead you take it and you help it and you use it to help you grow. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind, that no matter how much anybody says anything or they try to put you down, you just recuperate, you work on yourself and you work on your craft, and you come back and you hit them stronger. It shouldn't ever put you off. So just want to let you all know that.
And basically, I told the people already many times that in the professional world, it's normal not to get any feedback. Right? You send something away.
That's true.
The typical case is you don't get any feedback. So any feedback that you get from a professional is so valuable. Even if he says, "Oh, I hate it. It's shit." It's really something that is valuable. But here, okay, the good thing is, you can take the part of being the super critic.
With pleasure. for this stream, with pleasure. I want everything I say. If someone were to do the same to me and come and pull me to the side and be like, "Hey, Danny, I had to listen to this track of yours," and I'd be like, "Okay, perfect. Why?
Exactly.
Give me a valid and solid reason. Explain it to me that why it isn't working. And if you can convince me that it is what it is, then there's no reason for me to deny you. If I don't want to take your word for it, then it goes in through one ear and comes out the other. But if I take you of some value and I give you value, then of course whatever you tell me is going to be valuable information. So I think a lot of people need to approach it that way rather than just, oh, he didn't like my track, that means I'm a bad producer. No, that's not the case.
Yeah,
also
exactly,
aids
yes.
and so many factors. But of course, I think with this stream, I'm gonna try. There is going to be nothing in terms of preference. I really want the feedback that I give you guys to be solely based on just the track as industry standard in comparison to what it would be
Super.
in something else in the industry. So yeah, nothing is going to be biased and fair feedback for everyone.
Perfect. I like your way, because then we are simply very close to each other in this regard. Okay, so we are okay. Let's see who is there. Teil. Okay, just to let the people know, the SINEE team is sending me the tracks, so I have no idea. I had I didn't choose anything. I got 8 tracks. We will listen to 8 tracks. They are randomly chosen. That's what they told me always. We will listen to them, and then in the end you can vote for the winner of the evening, and the winner will get something from the SINEE team. Okay, so I would say we press play, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so please mute yourself. I will mute myself, and I press play as well. Okay. That was an opener.
All right. We're off to a good start.
So
There's definitely some notes I have, but I think overall, definitely off to a good start. I mean, so in my opinion, it was played a little safe in terms of, I think, just general direction of techno music. I personally, from my experience, I listened to a lot of tracks from the 90s and early 90s, right? And a lot of techno that we listen to now is very and heavily influenced from the 90s. And a lot of people don't know it until they listen to tracks. I mean, if they've been around in that era, they understand. But if they're newly coming into techno, they don't understand until they listen to it. And I think that there is at least 10 songs off the top of my head that I could name that have a similar vibe, right? It's not about, there isn't a problem in building the same thing or doing it in your way, because that's just how it is, right? Showing your artistic choices and your perception of how the track should be put out. But there are, I think, certain elements where it was just, oh, let me make a techno track rather than let me put my full heart and soul in this and do some things different. Does it work in a club? Yes, it does. Could you play this and people would go crazy? Sure. But I think it could use a bit more finesse. For example, the first thing I would say is in the low end, I feel like the sub and the kick was a little muddy. It could have been a little tighter and cleaner. It would have had a bit more push to it. Overall, the mix was good though. I would just say just some minor adjustments, right? With the main lead line, if it was me personally, I would take it down quite a bit in terms of where the placement is in the track, because it was kind of at a lot of points overpowering the kick and bass. And in techno music, in electronic music in general, especially techno, we need kick and bass to be the main, just to pierce through, and then everything else has to just follow. So I think he would have done some good with adjusting it in terms of levels, and finally adding a bit of automation. Have it move around, add a bit of panning, move it left and right. It's just dang, dang, dang from start to end. At some point it's like, okay, is that all? Have a point in the arrangement where you cut it down, take away the tension, bring it back stronger, give and take. I think that people misuse the fact that techno music is repetitive. Yes, it's repetitive, but with a little bit of changes, a bit of a story, so to speak, should be there with the track. But that's my opinion. I mean, I would love to hear what your thoughts were on the track.
Actually, your feedback was pretty precise. I the first impression was okay. This is pretty a nice setup. The groove was already okay, it's taking up. And then I was waiting, okay, do we have something will the person bring something that is surprising me, right?
Yeah.
And no, it was basically one theme, but that's actually right. I mean, if you see it as a, I would say this kind of a tool track for a DJ to have a tool, and probably you have these days the DJs have. I'm a live act all my life, so I never DJ'd. But the DJs have usually now a lot of this players, right? Yeah. And if you have this on one deck and then probably another track with some more percussive on the other deck, you can mix and create as a DJ, create something new out of this.
I agree with that. As a DJ that plays, I personally play with 4 decks all the time. It's always running 4 decks at the same time. I like to kind of create a live set experience with the CDJs, right? I'm practicing now, but we'll also be switching to live just because I think it's the next step for any artist. But the thing is with tool tracks as well, personally, this is of course now my personal opinion, is I feel like even with a tool track, it needs to still have some, again, character to it, you know? Having something that is just extremely tooly is just that it also feels like you're not really making use of the tools that you have. I mean, as a person that has been producing for 35 years, I'm sure you first-handedly experienced the evolution of
yeah, of
the
course.
music tools that we have, you know, the equipment that we have.
Yeah.
So why not, for example, if I'm doing something with hardware, then okay, I know that of course hardware is built with limitations, right? So I'm working within those limitations, and that's a hardware sound, that's a different characteristic. But if I were to, let's say, produce with Ableton, then I would go all out crazy, because the things that you could do with Ableton are just limitless. Of course, it has some limits, but nothing that hardware sets you, like the limitations that hardware sets you. So I feel like if you're producing something like this in Ableton, you could get a bit more creative. Like, it's good overall, but does it make you stand out? I think with the way that the current the industry is set up now, the tool tracks are being released at like hundreds a day. You know, we need more tracks that will make an impact rather than tool tracks, right? So I think like this artist's goal throughout, like in the future, should be to just work on building their sound, because this is just techno. I don't feel any essence of sound to it. You know, it reminds me of, I can tell you like 10 tracks I've heard from the 90s off of Chris Liebing's Stigmata series. Like there is a track that sounds like this. So I think just building your own sound and kind of pushing that with, of course, taking the elements that you already like and the elements that make techno special, you know?
Yeah, I see here in the comments, Peter is saying, thing is, good overall isn't enough anymore.
Unfortunately,
basically.
that's true. Unfortunately,
if this track would be released 10 years ago, or maybe then this would be like, whoa, wow, fat.
Yeah.
But and also, but this is something general for me, like just very personal. Back in the days, you heard the art, like you heard a track and you knew which artist it was, because every artist had its own sound, its own texture, its own way, right? And these days, when I sometimes I'm listening to music from other people, it's like I have no idea who, like, is this only all the tracks done by one guy, or is this different people? Because so much sounds the same. They are pretty all like technically way better than we were in the 90s. But I'm missing the personality. You could hear the person behind the track, right? And here it's like it's probably even too clean. But yeah,
I think because also we, like nowadays, I mean, of course, this is no offense to anybody, right? But we live in a time where right now making music and being an artist has kind of also popularized. You know, it's become a cool thing to be an artist. So everybody is trying to be an artist, and you have some people that are just so determined. And honestly, I respect people like this that are so determined that they will constantly do something so many times that they get good at it, and then they'll start repeating just what's popular. You know, they start to turn into like an AI where you put in a prompt like make this type of track, and they're just releasing to release, you know, rather than to release a piece of themselves and put it out there. Like, I think the purpose of making music is you should make music and just put it out there. If you're good and people vibe with it, then people will vibe with it. If you don't, then that it is what it is. It might be harsh, it might be a little bit off-putting, but if you solely love making music, it shouldn't be so you can be trendy or you can be popular. Of course, it is a dream to get like known because of your music, or to be able to make a living from music. But I think that you should prioritize music first and then the benefits later.
Yeah.
That's, I think, what's lacking.
Yeah, for me, basically, playing gigs, earning money through music, being known and traveling and all this, these are just side effects.
Exactly.
This is not why I'm into it at all. I'm into it because, and basically I do the music anyway, just for myself. I do the music that I want to listen to.
Yeah.
Right?
Much,
I'm
yes.
like super egoistic. I simply do the music I want to listen to. And then as a side effect, there are some people on the world liking what I do, but I don't do them for them. I mean, I'm thankful, of course, and thank you for making this possible that I'm still here, but I do what I want. Anyway.
Yeah. That's what being an artist is about. But I think it's become like social media and all of these different abilities to do things and how easy everything has become. We've reached a point where it's really become like I'm the type of person that I like to use samples, and I think samples are I started resampling a lot because of just how old school it is, like with the different Amiga sampler emulators and stuff like that, because it's just so retro and you get this really nice sound. But I feel like we also live in a time where everyone's just finding the right preset, just dropping in any preset, dropping in any sample, and they're like, okay, yeah, this sounds good, pairing like they have like 200 different sample packs, pairing a sound from each sample pack.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, yeah, there we go. Now I have a track. It sounds popular. It sounds good. Done. I'm gonna release this. It's not about just the act of making music, I think. So yeah.
It's basically playing Lego.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes, exactly.
I mean, yeah, but still, I mean, everyone is had to begin somewhere. So I think it's totally fine if you're a beginner, work with sample packs, do this, play Lego. But as soon as you if you're feeling okay, I understood the concept, then start to do your own thing.
Yeah,
really, because there the real fun starts.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because then it's always a maze. Because then you're always trying to, how can I do this? How can I do that?
Yes.
And you're always keeping yourself like entertained, and you're always like busy in your own mind, just doing things that are related to what you're passionate about.
Yeah, very. So okay, let's see. I would say we go into track number 2. Because actually, it's you are a great guest. It's super nice to talk to you. It's very, very nice. Listening, okay, listening. So the next one is from Saab. Oh, my screen is like so big that okay, died a test. Okay, test. I hope the artists are with us tonight as well, because it makes sense if you send in a track that you are checking the feedback, because we do it for you, right? Okay, so I'm muting myself.
All right.
And let's go, right? in the end, it was a little bit long.
So, I mean, in terms of, in comparison to, for example, the first track, which was way too just too industry, you know, what's there already, this was a lot more refreshing. Personally, I'm the type of person where I like in my tracks and the tracks that I play, I like this thing where it's important. It doesn't matter if you use the same bleepy synth all the time, or if you're constantly using the same sequences that have been used in a million tracks. It doesn't really matter. It's about making that your own, right? Which this artist clearly did. Of course, there were some points where I would say, like, one, like you said, it's quite long, right? Because we live in this age of really powerful and high-tech CDJ players now, right? Or any like DJ player, we have the ability to loop. Okay, back then having 7-8 minute tracks, 10-minute tracks was one. People had a higher attention span. That's the first one, like the first reality, right? It wasn't everybody's on TikTok and just 10-second stimulations, right? It was rather people were there to really enjoy, or people enjoyed a 10-minute long journey, right? But the other purpose in terms of like the club were giving the DJ enough time to be able to transition and to have a nice smooth transition, because the concept of looping wasn't there. You couldn't do it. But now, in this day and age where everybody is looping and you can loop, I think having a track more than 5.5 minutes, in my opinion, is overkill. Oh, it's just way too much, you know? Okay. It's okay not for a club track. If you're planning to make a track that is solely made to be played on the dance floor, you know, and over here you can, if you want to listen to it at home, you can. But the main purpose of this track is to be there on the dance floor. Then I think more than like 5.5 minutes is like way too much, right? If it's a track that is meant for you to sit down, put on your headphones, you know, light up a cigarette, have a drink, and listen to it and really get lost, yeah, sure, go for a 20-minute track. But if it's made to be a dance floor track, then I think like having a really long track is overkill, and starting your elements way too late is also another issue I think I have, is because then for me, for example, I like tracks which kind of have something to work with at the start but also progress. That way I can like loop and I can use certain parts of that track with the rest of the track, and then when I feel that okay, I can introduce the rest of this track, I can unloop and have the rest of it play out till the next 3 minutes, right? Till a nice point where I can loop it and continuously use that loop. But if the whole track is super loopy and there isn't much for me to work with, then there isn't a reason for me to play it, to have it progress. You know, then it becomes way too, again, tooly. This was a tad bit less tool, but it was still a bit too, like, the same thing again and again, you know? Like, we were going into, okay, I waited, I was like, oh wait, is there not gonna be a ride? I mean, thank God there was a ride. If there was no ride, I would have been like, I'm sorry, let's just, I can't anymore, you know? Like the ride, we need a ride for like tension, but the ride came in like mid-track. It's like, how can I go that long? You know, I was like, okay, first like minute, 2, and then it starts to just overwhelm you. But that's like in terms of arrangement and just overall creativity. I think in terms of mixing, in my opinion, of course, I would love to hear your thoughts about this as well. You know, being that the amount I've spent making music is like a tiny fraction compared to you. But for me, I love, especially if I'm using a lot of sounds and if I'm doing something very complex where there's a lot of textures, I'm a big fan of heavy EQing. You know, heavy and harsh low cuts, harsh high cuts, just to make everything sit cleaner. You know, I feel like some newer producers have this fear. They're like, oh, if I, for example, cut my kick at 45 hertz, right? I lose any frequencies under 45. It doesn't work like that. There is still going to be frequencies. It's just cleaned up. It's not like you completely cut it out. Those frequencies cease to exist. Finished. Nothing below 45 gets played. No, you still have frequencies below 45. It's just cleaner. So I think with this, for example, I was listening, and at points, the mid tone he had, like the mid synth he had, the bleep, when it was bleeping, it was taking over the kick and the bass. So it was affecting the bass line. And for me, that's a big no-no, you know, because then it affects the way the track is being perceived. Then all I hear is boop, and it's just like, whoop, it's like a big jump there, and then it goes back down. So I think just EQing and making some harsher cuts, especially if you're using a ton of elements and a lot of textural things. You know, the idea is to work things in layers. A good analogy I always like to use is making music is like making a sandwich, right? The kick, bass, and hats and like the percussions, that's the bread. So that's the foundation of the track. So that's the main thing. So long as you have a solid foundation, you can put anything inside the foundation or on the foundation, right? So like a sandwich. And everything else works in layers, right? So all the condiments that you use works in layers. So if I add a little bit too much mayonnaise, then my sandwich is going to taste a lot like mayonnaise and less than the other ingredients I put in it. And the same thing I think applies like in music. You know, you want everything in moderation, and it's all supposed to complement one another rather than fight with each other, you know?
And here we had a lot of overlapping frequencies, and the low end was kind of flat and not very powerful, almost empty. When I switched to my main monitors, I thought, it's a bit, it could be more. Yeah, and then the atmosphere was kind of nice. This vocal sound, kind of vocal, was giving like a nice atmosphere. It could be more crazy and more trippy for my personal taste. I thought, okay, he's bringing all this little nice elements into it, but then he was not developing them and make the track somehow like super crazy, you know, like a mind worm that really goes into your brain.
I want to point out something that you said, which is really interesting. I think the reason you also feel this way is because you come mainly from a hardware background. I think I'm assuming here, of course, I'm not too sure, but I think you got into like DAWs a bit like
later, of course, when later.
So I think when you're working from a modular perspective or from a perspective of hardware, I think it takes a lot of years working with digital to understand this, but just a few years working with like modular to understand it. And it's like when you're working with hardware, even if you blow on it with some gear, the sound will change. You know, so it's all about chaos, and you're okay with tweaking it for hours on end till suddenly you move it a quarter of a centimeter and you hit some frequency that just gives the craziest sound. And throughout this whole time, you're recording like 1 hour of you just jamming around. So you have a lot of things to work with. But with like the digital world, I feel like when you're putting in a bunch of LFOs, it reaches to a point where it becomes really hard to control that chaos. You know, for me, that's why what I like to do is when I want some like crazy automations, I'll sit there, just put a recording, put like an audio channel and an input from whatever synth I'm using, and just sit down and modulate it manually till I get some really weird things, you know, some happy accidents, because I think that's how music is really made, you know, through happy accidents.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, bam, you hit something and you're like, oh, got it. I catch that snippet. I can either use it in a later track or use it there and then on that track as well. So I think just sitting down and exploring things and building all these different soundscapes and random events happening, and either manually modulating them, or even if you do it with like an LFO, what you can do is just sit down and record it, move through the encoder, find some different and interesting longer loops and just build them for yourself and then incorporate them in the track. I think that way you get that same feel that you're talking about. I feel like that's such a hardware thing, you know, because I came, like, after producing digitally for about 4 years, like just in the box, I bought my first piece of hardware. And then from like noodling with that and then getting the second piece and then the third one and then just noodling around, I kind of figured like with hardware, it's more about flow. When you're working in like a DAW, it's hard to build flow because it's like being at the office. You know, we're working with like,
totally true.
External hardware is being in the park. Working with the DAW, it's being in the office. And it's really hard to get emotion out of a blank slate. Because I think any piece of hardware already has its own personality and like a character. So yeah, I think that's just, you should approach the DAW with that hardware mentality. For me, what kind of clicked for that was because I was like, okay, I became obsessed with like 90s techno. And I was like, oh, how did they make 90s techno? It was all with hardware. Okay, so how can I get that hardware sound without using hardware or not having access to hardware? So using a ton of sequencers, using a lot of things that would give it that hardware aspect and randomness, and then just work with that.
Yeah, and for me, one reason why I'm still using, of course, I love all the software these days. It's just like heaven on earth, right? Yeah. But the thing with hardware is you can misuse the hardware. And you can get results that were not planned. For example, I sometimes use a hardware reverb as a distortion unit. I simply overload it so it's completely distorting. And I love this distortion sound, right? Because the hardware is completely collapsing. You can't do this with a plugin. The plugins are doing what they are programmed for. In hardware, you can do some crazy stuff, and sometimes it sounds nice. I mean, just an old story, like way back in the beginning, when I was starting this Rob Acid thing, I had basically no idea. And how I got my, I mean, probably know this kind of machines, right?
Yeah, the TD303.
The 303, yeah, right. So this is still my old, the one that I used back then. How I got the sound that I was known for was I simply connected the 303 to a DJ mixer into the phono input. And the phono input, if you put a line signal into the phono input, it's completely distorting like crazy. This was my Rob Acid distortion sound. People are still asking, like, after 30 years, Robert, how did you do your distortion? Take a super cheap DJ mixer and put it into the phono input.
Yeah, I think just exploration with like more crazy stuff also just would push it. So I think, yeah, for example, again, with this track, a tad bit more like creativity was up there. I think just a bit more, make the track a bit more interesting, as well as don't be afraid to make those harsher and more detailed, precise cuts. I think the best investment, if anybody doesn't have this already, is get yourself the FabFilters Pro Q. Like that is the best.
You can do everything with this, yeah.
You know, like you can do everything with it, and it's the most precise EQ out there, and it'll just help you. Like it's one tool that you pay now, and it's good for the next 10 years. So it's definitely something important, and always monitor your spectrum. Make sure to check how the frequencies are working with each other, solo things out, make sure things aren't clashing, especially with the foundation of your track, which is the kick, bass, and hats. Because the moment you have clashing with those, you ruin the experience on a massive and nice sound system.
Yeah. And maybe back to this track, from my point of view, I would love to have more weird sounds. And also while this was running, and because the first track also had this FM-like sounds, is this a thing at the moment? Like people using probably operator in Ableton as a baseline thing?
FM has become, I think FM has always been quite popular in techno music, but especially in this more minimal hypnotic stuff, the bleepy stuff always reigns supreme. You know, everybody loves the bleeps. but it's just
True.
about, I think, how you use it and being really careful, because at the end of the day, that's a sine wave, right? And if you don't cut the lows off a sine wave, you're gonna have a lot of trouble. It's one of those messy type of waveforms, you know? Like, I think a sine wave can either be your best friend or it can be your worst enemy. It just depends how you can work
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah,
So
I'm a sine wave fan completely.
yeah, same here. So I think like they need to just work on EQing. I think a lot of music I listen to nowadays just lacks mixing characteristics. Like beyond just mixing, I think everyone should have their own personal like style of mixing. You know, some people like to have distortion, some people like to have things distorted and spacey, so with like reverb. I personally, I like to have my tracks mixed really clean as I can do it, you know. So I just have every element, like if you close your eyes and you focus on an element, it should be able to pop out to you. You know, if it can do that, that's how I like my mix to be. So I think nail down your mix characteristics and what aim you would have for it. And then the second thing you should work on is just giving the best version of that. So when you listen to it on really, like for me, what I like to do is I like to listen on a really shitty mono speaker. You know, like some really crappy speaker. And if the mix sounds clear and good on that, then I'm like, okay, then it's gonna sound pretty decent in a club. So just work on those things and try not to blast music. I feel like a lot of new artists and young artists are working in untreated rooms, which
Yeah.
is the main thing. Like they don't understand, like it's not about how good your speakers are, it's about how good your room is. Everything comes down to the space
Very.
in which you're music. So if you can't have a good pair of if you can't use your monitors in a good room, then invest in really good headphones. If you don't like to work with headphones like me and you're forced to use monitors, then make your room the most optimal place to use the monitors in and work at low volumes. Like a good tip, a friend of mine who's a mastering engineer taught me is that if you want to know your mix is good, drop it down to like a really low level where you can just barely hear, and be sure that you can hear all the elements pushing through. It should push through clean. If it pushes through clean, you have good dynamic range and everything is like balanced. And I think these little things are important in taking your tracks to the next level.
Who is your mastering engineer?
He was just like a friend of mine who's just obsessed with like any.
Because this is exactly what I'm saying since like over 10 years to the people. If you really want to know if something is too loud or not really sitting well in the mix down, put the mix on and make it as low as possible so you can barely hear anything, and you will clearly hear if the hi-hat is too loud or the kick is jumping out or if things are not in balance. That's
so true. And when he told me, I was like, "Oh, no, are you crazy?" I was like, "How can you hear it if it's like extremely low?" Then I put it down and I was like, "Oh my God." All I could hear was my hi-hat, and I was like, "Oh, that's bad."
Exactly.
So it's
if you don't have a treated room, this is a tip that can really save you.
Because I mean, for me, it's really hard to use visual analyzers. I use a lot of my ears, so I think just having everything at a low volume, spacing, make sure to space your monitors away from the wall. Don't keep them on a table, like a flat surface right in front of you. These little things, if everybody keeps them in mind, especially younger, newer producers, I think it will do like a huge difference to their productions. Because then they'll really hear what their tracks sound like. I mean, granted, with that being said, most of the 2 tracks that we heard, they were mixed quite good. I've heard like a lot worse.
No, the first tracks here, we are quite on a high level here already today. Just this track was, in my opinion, the bass was a bit too flat. Could be a bit more powerful. But and we had too much overlapping of elements, so it was not clearly cleaned out. But you know what? Because I'm doing music for such a long time, for me, you probably heard this: less is more, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, it's crazy. Like every 10 years, I have this. oh, now I understand. You know? And then 10 years later, oh, fuck, yes. And like these days, my whole mixdown is basically, I only use low cuts. That's it.
Yeah. That's mostly what I do as well. And
That's it.
and people are always shocked. They're like, "Oh, you mix so basic." I'm like, "Yeah,
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just
Exactly.
a low cut, making sure
Yes.
it doesn't clash with the kick and bass, and you have enough mids. And if the highs are too sharp, cut the
Yeah.
highs. That's all. I think you just need a low cut, high cut to really fix a mix. I mean, if you look at most, like even hardware gear, like on most of these, like just more basic but newer, like the Electron gear, most of the filtering works with like bass filters, you know, like their second filter is always just a bass filter when it comes to EQing, you know, not just to get something crazy, but to EQ. So just make some harsher cuts. Definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, we could go
And
into
as soon as you have to repair something, probably you have the wrong sound. The whole composition starts with choosing the right sounds,
exactly.
right? And as soon as you have to repair and do crazy things, probably the sound is not the right one, and you
That's so
lose
true.
time. It's really great to talk to you, and yeah, you know exactly what you are doing. So and I heard and I heard you did a master class for our SINEE team, but we probably talk about this after the next track.
Yeah, sounds
Because
good.
people are also here to listen to some music,
Yeah.
right?
Everybody here is to low-key judge. It's all healthy judging, it's all healthy feedback.
Yes,
All
very.
criticism is criticism.
I am afraid of the dark.
All right. Yes.
Very different from the first two tracks. I mean,
Yes.
when I came into the stream, I had some slight expectation that there would be something that is definitely not in the style that I generally work in. But I mean, at the end of the day, music is music, and if it's good,
Yeah, absolutely.
credit where credit's due, you know. I could definitely see this as a release track. Some melodic techno DJ somewhere could be playing, you know. Like it is very reminds me of like very 2018 Art Bat vibes, you know. I would just say maybe in terms of like mixing, he could have done a bit of toning down on the synth he had coming after like the second drop, right? Where basically the main synth that came in, I think it was a little bit too overpowering. And it's such a melodic techno thing. I know this because before I started making the type of music I make now, I was of course having my own mental dilemmas where I didn't know what I wanted to make. I just wanted to make music. None of the genres were like enticing. It was just to make them because I wanted to challenge myself as an individual, as an artist, rather than, you know, have a genre. So I did everything. I did the commercial, more business techno-y, you know, drum code stuff. I did the melodic techno. I did the progressive house. I did the minimal stuff. I messed around. I dabbled around in all the genres.
Yeah, and that's so important. You have to mess around with all the different styles to find out what you really like. You have to
Exactly.
do it.
I think that's an important thing, and it also helps you to take the different things you learn, because in all of these genres they approach things so differently. You know, like when I made minimal techno and more commercial stuff, and then coming into hypnotic techno, it was a huge like shitstorm for me in my head, because it was like, okay, in like melodic techno and minimal techno, I'm using like 35-40 channels sometimes, you know, because there's so many little things happening, fade here, this, there, like a bunch of things going on. But then in more like conventional and like proper techno, everything is more stripped back. It's just all about the rhythm. It's all just about the drums, you know. And it took me a while to grasp how to make my music repetitive and hypnotic, but not boring. You know, it took me a lot of trial and error to grasp that factor. So, yeah, but with this track, I think just in terms of like from melodic techno value, I think this artist isn't gonna have the least bit of an issue getting this track released. You know what I mean? Like it is up to industry standards. Just a few things I think in the mixing, like I said, just the synth could have been brought down a bit and toned down the decay on the reverb. You know, it's so spacey. It's like all I hear is just, you know, this is air in the back. It's just space. It's like reverb is nice, I know, but it's like all of these different effects and like elements should be used as like spices in the track, just to give it a bit of like flavor, not to just fully mask the track and all you hear is their reverb. So, I mean, but good job, like props to this artist. That's my feedback for this one.
Yeah, technically the track was good in a way. People who know me, I think also in the stream, know that I don't like 1 million breaks in a track. I think dance music is there because it has the word dance into it, and not break and take out your mobile phone and check your Instagram. Right? So I think here it was too much. You can already see it on the waveform. Like, okay, he's doing something and then stopping again. And he's doing something and he's stopping again. And he's
with long break, it is a problem. I agree. Like for me, I like to have, like, if you look at my waveforms, they also have a lot of like breaks in them. But the way I approach it is I like these like very short millisecond breaks.
If you do it, I
Like
do
a
this the
dynamic
same.
shift,
Like
you know, like a shift in the rhythm.
Yes.
You know, in that aspect. But to have like constantly 15-second, 20-second, 1 minute long, breaks, I feel like it's like too much. Like you said, you need to have an aspect of tension. There always has to be, in dance music, there needs to be tension. Constantly having these like, especially, but it's such a melodic techno thing. You know, with melodic techno,
True.
this is why I couldn't.
Yeah, they do it
I
all the
judge
time.
based on the genre. Yeah, when you listen to melodic techno, you have like sometimes a 2 minute break, and it's just like building, and you're like, drop it already, please, you know. But I think from the aspect of just technicality and like musical value for the genre that he built it in, I think he did a good job, solid job.
But for me, I was missing like the main. Okay, let's say it like this. For me, if a track is really, really good, then I will still hear the track in my head when the track stopped.
That's true.
Right? There's like something. It stays in your mind.
Yeah.
You can hear the
Especially
track when the
in
track even finished.
Yeah.
I simply don't hear anything in my head here.
If you ask me, I agree. If you ask me, do I remember the track? No. If you were to play it, it would be like a new experience again.
Yeah, and this is something that this track needs. Something that really has something to remember. This is all like super generic elements. They work pretty well, all cool, but I was missing something to remember in this track. And really, it's silent in my head. Like, no, I hear the tracks from before that we heard more than this one. And I as Robert Babic, I'm into melodic. I mean, I'm a professional melancholic human. So I love sad or emotional stuff, but could be more here. The production was pretty clean, everything was there, but in a way it was too clean, like too
robotic,
right?
It's systematic.
I missed the emotion here. It doesn't have to be like the huge Hollywood drama movie, because this kind of music is also like, oh, too much for me. But yeah, feeling. But anyway, technically was good, but I don't remember anything. That's sad, to be honest. Yeah, it sounds these days a lot of people they are afraid to risk something. Like really do something that people like. It's not expecting doing something. Risk something, you know. Do I don't know. Whatever. Go.
But you know, I'll put in some like food for thought here. I think the reason that the case is like people are afraid to take big steps or to take risks is because of one main reason, I would say, is social media. It's because, again, especially with something that is a trendy genre, you know, something that's hype, something that can get you somewhere quick, you're just looking in to make it big real fast. You know, I think it's hard it would be really hard for you to grasp it, because I think you've seen the nitty gritty aspect of music, and that is something I truly envy, you know, because I always tell my friends, I'm like, I wish I was like this, the age I am right now, around the era that techno started to go out there, you know, because it was different. Hard work mattered, you know. It was, you were sitting down in your little studio that you built in your basement or in your bedroom, just fucking around, trying to make something until you reach a point where it's like good, and then you're going out there promoting yourself and hoping, you know, waiting like a long time to get some feedback, and then you know, okay, you're good because you actually put in some effort, you put in some work into getting recognized. But the main reason you started wasn't to get recognized, because it wasn't that popular either. It wasn't that, oh, if you're a DJ, you're cool now. It was just, oh, what is this? You know, you got into electronic music because you were like, how can you make music with computers? You know, what's the logic behind it? It's always been conventional instruments, and then whoop, something new appears, and it's just a bunch of us nerds, you know, going and being like, oh, we want to make something with this, great. And that was the concept. Now it's all about how can I get something that's like a banger. You know, you go into Beatport. That's why when you enter Beatport's top 100, it's like top 100 of the same tracks. I'm sorry, like, no disrespect to all the producers that put in hard work, right? But like, really, everybody's just copying the other guy. Like, come on,
they do
with
this,
something new. I understand you want to get famous quick and you want to have your music played. You want to make money from music. Fantastic, all respect. You're a hustler, but at least do something unique. You want to stand out, do something unique. Don't be like the rest of the sheep, you know? Don't just follow blindly like, oh, this is good, I want to make this. You know, be the one that sets the trend, not the one that's following the trend. You know, a lot of artists are now following the trend rather than trying to set new trends, which is, I think, the problem and what we're lacking.
You know what was kind of fantastic in the early 90s was you were going to the clubs every weekend, of course, and you heard sounds that you never heard before.
Exactly.
And then it was like, fuck, what is this? How did you do this? And this was going on all the time. It was simply like extremely amazing, like where the styles started to develop. Oh, this is, oh no, this took that. I like this more, and this, and I had so many moments on the dance floor where I was like stopping dancing and what is this sound, right? And this is something I'm missing basically, because
it rarely happens now.
Right?
It rarely happens. Yeah. It really rarely happens, and it's sad.
Yeah,
it's really sad.
We have the technology these days is we are so far, like stuff that like every laptop with software on it, it's so much better than $1 million studio back in the 90s. Really, you can do so much more with it's so crazy.
That's so true. I think getting any piece of hardware right now is solely for the soul that it brings with it, you know, and just so you have a feel for things. Like if anybody asks me, like I have a lot of times people ask me, they're like, oh, when should we get hardware, or what's that piece of hardware? I'm like, it took me 4 years. You know, I used Ableton so much till I got bored from using Ableton. You know, I'd reached a point where I was like, okay, I know what I want to do. I want to find something else that challenges me. Granted, I still, till today, I'm always learning new things in Ableton.
And you will always.
As a producer, right? But
it will never stop.
Always the soul that hardware has is there, right? And then there is Ableton. But if you were to ask me, like, where is it that I get work done and I can make the craziest things? Without even batting an eye, I would say always Ableton. What do I even use to prepare, like, a lot of my stuff? Like, I'm a big fan of like samplers and groove boxes, right? So I prepare most of my complex samples within Ableton. As much as I want to escape it, no piece of hardware can do what I can do there with like resampling, getting the nitty. So until then, I mean, that's why it's everything, the tools are there, but I feel like we're just lacking creativity because of the current social structures and the structure of overall the electronic music industry. It's become a race, rather. It's always been a marathon, right? But now, right now it's trying to become a race. And I'm all about healthy competition and fun competition, you know? It's fun to be competitive even in between friends. There is no shame. It's not about, ooh, if he's better than me, I hate him. No, he can be better than me. I want to be as good or even better. And that's what will keep us motivated and keep us going, you know? But you don't have that anymore. Right now, it's like, ooh, this guy's good. How did he do that? let's just do what he did. Let's follow his method. And of course, if it worked, it worked. Finished. If it worked for him, it'll work for me too. No, but that doesn't work that way. And I think that's what people are lacking right now, because all of these sounds are also now available. Like you said, when you went to the club back in the day, you would always be hearing new things. Now you go and all you hear is the same thing again. Just a little bit different. Not even like drastically different, just a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah. And also something, I would say, art is not a horse ride, right? There is no winner, there is no best in this. You cannot win anything. You only win the freedom to express yourself through music. This is what you should care. And your masterclass for SINEE, tell me about it. Because I think you already said a little bit about your workflow, but what are you showing in your masterclass? Because it's released, it's fresh, right? It's something you have done for them.
It came out last week, and it was, to be honest, there was also an interview, and I just want to say, doing the interview was harder than doing the masterclass. So it's just like, the masterclass actually was really fun. It was a bit easier for me as well, because I occasionally do one-on-ones here and there. So teaching has always been something I never thought I would like doing, but I like it, because I think like knowledge is key, right? Knowledge is key, and I don't like to hide things. Like if I were to teach someone something my way, and if my way is good and beneficial for them, and they get good at it, I lose nothing. You know, if anything, that would make me proud at where I had gone to, and by helping that person, they were able to achieve something. If they got better than me, good for them, right? That's completely fine. I helped to get them to that stage. So it's always been like nice to share knowledge and to teach. So yeah, with the masterclass, that's kind of what I wanted to do. I showed just my basic way of making music, which because I'm more or less self-taught, it's just a lot of I think a lot of just stuff I put together. I started to get very technical about things recently. I am trying to learn a bit more and understand a bit more, but I feel like with also knowing a lot of technical stuff, it kind of also has its own setbacks where it will just drive you insane, where you're like, oh, okay, I could do this, but then I could do this, and then I could do this, and then you kind of lose touch with music. So I'm a little bit scared about that, but I think it's also good to just know what you're doing, but just keep it in the back of your head. Just still always be exploring. So yeah, with the masterclass, I wanted to show the easiest and the quickest, most efficient way to be able to get out industry standard, more or less, quality music while still enjoying yourself, not needing to have a ton of technical knowledge, but still having fun and being able to create interesting things and letting your creativity be your only limitation. That's kind of like what I try to do with my own music. Like I'm always looking for, if I'm resampling, for example, I'll find a sample that's like, I have a obsession with like sample packs from like the 80s and the 90s for like the old games, and you know, like the 0G packs, the Vengeance packs. And I just go through there and find some like really random things that like, if you listen to it as a sample, as what it was, it's like, what is this? And just take it and manipulate it and just pitch it up, pitch it down, really get crazy with it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, randomly go searching again. I never also find a sample, I'm like, ooh, would this sound good? No, I tried it. Oh, it's a nice sample. Put it in, it works, it works. It doesn't work, let it go, you know? Just get creative, because I think like that's what it's lacking at the end of the day, making techno music. Like the harsh truth, right? Let's just be realistic about things, is that it's not such a complicated thing, right? Making good techno music, now that's a complicated thing. But the aspect of just making techno to begin with is not a complex genre. It is more complex, I would say, a little bit more complex than making, for example, hip hop, because hip hop revolves a lot more around longer samples, you know? techno is a little bit more complex than that, but it's not as complex as, I don't know, psytrance, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it's a very complex genre.
True.
You know, there's a ton of things happening. So with techno, I think, again, what lacks is, like the past few tracks that we were listening, is that little spark of creativity where you're just like, fuck it, I want to be different. Why should I be in this, like, line? Why can't I go a little bit to the left? Which is what I do. I mean, in my day-to-day, I listen to a lot of, like, dubstep, a lot of hip-hop, and when I'm searching for samples or when I'm looking for things to incorporate in my music, they're always completely away from techno. Because I want to introduce something different. Like, my goal is to have this techno that is inspired by old school techno with a little bit of flavor of, like, dubstep and, like, UK garage and, like, drum and bass. But it's still techno at its core, but it has these little bits of here and there in it. And I think that's what, for example, makes my sound special. Like, a lot of people ask, like, oh, what's this style of techno that you make? And it doesn't really have a name, it's techno, but with inspirations from different types of, like, genres and stuff. So that's some of the stuff that we covered in the masterclass, and we go over, and I just show what my process is.
Okay.
Kind of starting stuff from scratch and building through.
Well, maybe I should have a look as well.
I
Just
would love to.
a side question here. Bus Cadet asked, did you found any cool new plugin lately that you really loved?
Oh, yeah, yes. There is a plugin that I also talk about a lot in the masterclass. By the way, it's called Infiltrator.
Yeah,
I'm not
Infiltrator
sure
is massive. Yeah. And
Yeah,
I just wrote my latest thing. Of course, Infiltrator is it's my basic tool every day. But also my Filterverse. If you ever tried it.
No, I haven't tried it.
It's like the best friend for Infiltrator.
Yeah, nice.
Super
Okay.
complex, crazy things you can do, like Infiltrator. So cool. Yeah.
I mean, for a filter, like a crazy new filter I'm using is do you know the guys over at Hypnos? They have this Hypnos Slink. It's like a Max for Live instrument, Max for Live FX plugins. And basically there's a pan and there's a filter that is amazing. And they're made with the intention of replicating water. Right, so the waveforms and the way the filters move is to replicate water, and it is a crazy tool, especially in like textures and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely crazy. Like I love the Link stuff. I use that a lot as well. Yeah, but Infiltrator. I mean, I hadn't heard of Infiltrator because it's not. I feel like it's not a techno FX plugin. It's very for people that do.
Wait. Are there any techno FX plugins?
I mean, there are a few that are catered more towards techno. Because with techno, it's a lot of, I would say, in my opinion, right? Like when I look at just general techno, when you listen to it, it's a lot of just basic effects, right? A lot of just reverb, some regular delays, maybe some tape delays at most, and just some light distortion, nothing too crazy, right? But when you look at something like Infiltrator, which is just a mess, it's a chaos machine. It's a very chaotic. It's something that you would hear in drum and bass or dubstep rather than in techno is a lot more precise than chaotic, So that's why it uses a lot more precise tools. But I think using more chaotic stuff and incorporating that and just taming it, like having this controlled chaos, is perfect for techno. That's what I think really pushes music to the next level.
Yeah, I mean the concept of Infiltrator is basically having a sequencer for effects.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So every step is different effects combined, doing different stuff with each other.
With the LFO that it has as well.
Yeah.
The LFO, right?
You can go really, really crazy. Yeah. I use Infiltrator basically daily. It's it's almost it's a must-have. Yeah, and something new, Filterverse. If you never tried it,
I'll definitely look into it.
You can do crazy stuff as well. Like it's way more than just filtering. Way more.
Okay, like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
really cool. I would say let's jump into the next track because we are talking and talking and talking. And time is running because it makes fun to talk to you. Okay, next track is my screen resolution is too high because I need all the windows open here. Hypermoon. I would say we listen to the track. I press play.
It's fun.
Actually, I would say the production quality is pretty good for all the tracks we heard already today. They are all that's not beginner music here, I would say,
Yeah.
right?
I would agree with that.
They know what they do.
Yeah.
But let's hear what you think about this.
So I think I'm gonna be a little bit extra harsh with this one
Uh-huh.
because I feel like the track had a lot of potential, but it just sadly wasn't met, you know. For me, the areas that the track lacks in is that I wish the lead line would have as much reverb as the clap had. You know, like
Yeah.
it might come off as harsh, but like the clap was just way too wide with a ton of reverb. It just like slapped back, like, and the lead was just dry and like right on top, you know. And for me, that's like a big overkill. I like to have, I mean, maybe it's my ADHD, but I don't know. Like, I like to have a kind of crowded track, so to speak, right? But I like to have a lot of things happening, but I also want it to be like rhythmic. I want it to have a purpose. I don't want to just drag a sound from start to finish and let it be there. In my opinion, every channel inside a track, whether it's a 5-channel track or a 50-channel track, right? It has purpose. You know, it needs to have purpose, and they need to have a reason to be there in the first place. Why did you need 50 channels? If you give me a good reason that you needed 50 channels, then and you sell it to me, and I listen to the track, and I go like, wow, okay, yeah, these 50 channels put together, they glue and they make like a massive art piece. You know, it's like collaging. You're putting a bunch of little things and to make one massive thing. And then you have this other aspect of it where they could even work with 20 sounds, 25 sounds, but it feels like you're being choked by the track. You know what I mean? It feels like the track is like a very tight elevator and you're starting to feel claustrophobic because they're just piling on the elements. And like, while the elements might be good elements, if the mix down is off and if your placement is off and your introduction of the element and the way the purpose of the element are off, then the track is just not going to glue together. Like, it's a good track. The groove is nice. It's a pumping track, fantastic. But would I play it in a club? It wouldn't have the impact I'm looking for. You know, would I, for example, I have my own label. If someone were to send me this as a demo, I would reply, I'm sorry, but like, it's not wowing me. You know, it's not wowing me. Two, it's just, it feels like it's good technically, but it also feels professional, yet a little too amateur for me. Like, if you're good enough to do this, put in that little bit more and get it to that wow stage, rather than just, you came this far and you're like, yeah, this is good enough. Let's go.
And
That's just my feedback.
Yeah, you are totally right. That's all. It's what I'm saying all the time. Every sound should have a reason to be there. If there's no reason, why it's there, right? And here in this track, like if you were closely listen to all the elements, it was almost like two tracks, like two separate tracks playing at the same time.
Yeah.
There were all the elements, like by itself, were working, but there was too much. Like you said, it was too crowded, and then this map, it was a little bit going onto my nerves. I like hypnotic techno, and this was the rhythm was kind of pushy, was nice, the energy, but at the same time this was like well, please. And then the vocal thing can be also pretty trippy if a vocal is completely repeating all the time.
Yeah.
But then probably go into some delays or open a reverb just for half a second or something, just to make it more interesting. But that's my personal thing.
No, but I completely agree. I think that it just felt a little bit, like I said, professional to a point, but just professional quality and technicality, but amateur presentation. It's very, you know, like when you, I don't know if you watch a lot of MasterChef or Hell's Kitchen. I love Gordon Ramsay, and as a character, you know, and he has this thing. It's like you have all these top tier chefs coming in, and when they come to present the food, it's like it's their first time in a kitchen. You know, it's the same idea here. You have the technical ability. Why, when it came to presentation, you just put it on the plate? You didn't go the extra step to, you know, plating it properly. Like that synth. All he had to do with a synth like that, like the main synth that was on top, what I would do, put an auto filter, automate it, have it open, close, done, done, finish. Add a little bit of panning, have it go left and right, done, finish. You're making it a bit better with the vocals. You don't want to overdo it. If people wanted to listen to techno music to hear vocals, they would listen to rap or pop instead. This is my opinion. I love vocals. I use vocals a lot, but even sometimes when I'm using vocals, I'm like, I did it too much. I'm like, I need to know. This is too much. Like, I like it, but like, no. You know, so I think you need to just drop it in, take it out, work with elements you have. A good thing, a good tip I think I would give starting out producers or producers who just haven't had it click yet is what I did for myself is I limited myself to a maximum of 25 channels. At 24 channels, we say one channel is for the sidechain. So a total of 24 channels was like my max to make a solid track. If I could do it in 15, most of like the tracks that people like from me the most, you know, and have showed the most support to have maybe 14, 13 channels, you know, 15 channels at most. Work with what you have, master it, and then go on to bigger things. Right now, like my recent productions, if you ask me how many channels I have like 33, 35. Why?
That's already a lot.
I'm going with very tiny surgical elements that if you listen to the track, you don't feel that there's 33 channels, but they're there because they need to be there. But that's because I've already come to grasp how to make things work with so many little channels that now when I go into bigger things, I'm only doing it to get more complex things, not to make my tracks sound any less full than they are. No, I want more complexity in my music now. I'm focusing more on like textures and all these weird things inside music. So I'm just layering a ton of stuff. So it goes up, but like definitely work on mastering, at putting limitations for yourself where you're like, okay, the next 1 year or 2 years, I have to make solid tracks with just 20 channels. After I do that, then I can go into making it 30 channels if I need it. If I don't need it, then 20 channels is enough. You'll find most of the time, like you said, simplicity and minimalism is key, right? The most popular songs in the world have just one lead line and just that's all. That's all. You know, we can name a million tracks, like hardcore, like famous electronic music tracks just off of their lead line, right? Because it's about picking elements that make an impact. You know, like you put it earlier, this is something I also highlight a lot in the masterclass, and I tell everyone in general that asks for my like feedback and opinion, is that when I build a track, this is why I also mix very precisely, is because, like I said, when the listener closes their eyes and they listen to the music, they can highlight that sound that they connect with, because every single individual on this planet will connect to a different aspect of a track, okay? For you, it might be a vocal. For me, it might be the bass line. For someone else, it might be the lead line, you know? And that's the only element that stays stuck in your head. And when you remember that element, the track just forms around it. And now you have the track stuck in your head. That's always how it works. It's always about picking that one element that people go like, ooh, I really like that lead line. Ooh, I really like that vocal. Yeah. And then you got them. they're screwed. They'll never get your song out of their head. You know, that's the psychology
That's
behind
it.
it.
Yeah, totally.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
I think that's like the most thing like people don't grasp is that the harsh truth is nobody really cares about the hard work put into music. People just care about the final result, which is how it sounds, and being able to connect with it. Because the moment they can connect with it, done. Like I make music that I don't even connect to, but I've had people come and tell me, "Oh my God, like this track of yours got me through a depressing time," and I'm like, "Wow, that's crazy to hear that." You know, it blows my mind because for me, it's just a mere thought. You know, someone told me something really interesting in the backstage of a club one day. He told me that making music is like writing your thoughts in a journal, right? That stuck with me till today, and I was like, "Oh my God, he has like a point, whether he was like stoned or whatever he was, you know, he was just like wise words." I was like, "What?" The universe wanted me to hear that, and that's what it is, you know. I don't attach myself to my music. It's just my thoughts. I'm just expressing. I'm writing. I can't say it in words, so I say it in music, you know. Whether it gets released, whether it goes in the trash, whether people hate it, whether they love it, it means nothing. They're just my thoughts. If I'm lucky, people will like my thoughts. If I'm not lucky, it is what it is, you know? So it doesn't really matter. So just pick, when you're going through what sounds do I pick, think about which sounds would make the biggest impact, you know? Try to put yourself in the shoes of others. I think making music is also a lot about psychology and just mental state than it is technicality, you know? It's being able to understand that you're not only, of course, you're making music for yourself, but if you want to be a releasing artist and you want to be an artist that's like catering also somewhat to his crowd or to his fans, you need to also understand that, okay, if they're listening to my music, how do I want to make them feel, and how would they feel if they listen? Would they connect with it? Would it cause some sort of a brain reaction where they go, "I like this and this is it for me," or won't it? You know, so I think always listening to your own music from the third person's perspective is definitely a huge help into knowing whether you're there or not, or whether your music has any substance to it.
I, that's an actually, yeah, for me my music is also like my diary, like the how I feel today, right?
Yeah.
But like in for me it's like that. Doing music is my lifelong therapy.
Yeah,
Right?
agreed.
Because personally, in my life, every artist that I ever met has a mental problem.
But you need to go crazy to make it
And
work.
yeah, and the artists, we found a way to deal with our problems, our inner pain or whatever, through music, and transform this into something positive.
Exactly.
And from, like, especially for me, when I'm making music, it's simply the process is I'm doing something, and then basically the track speaks to me what it needs to be great.
Perfectly put.
Right?
Perfectly put. Because I was having this discussion with a friend of mine today, and he put a lead line on his track, and I was like, it's not fitting. He was like, how come? I was like, you can feel the track is like, I don't want it like this. You need to go with the track.
The track is telling you everything.
It will tell you, just follow the flow.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
Perfect. Perfectly put.
It's like
Perfectly
this, and I'm pretty sure if you simply take off your ego and let things happen, then you listen with your heart, and the track will tell you everything. And I'm even convinced right now that this is almost like a mirror to your inner self.
That's true.
You simply talk while you make this music. You talk to your subconscious with this. It's like it's almost like a meditation if for me.
Yeah.
It's a really deep process where you can understand yourself by the track is telling you everything. Like when I start making music, I'm doing nothing. I just do something. The track is telling me what to do.
These thoughts are raw acid thoughts.
Yes. Yeah, of course.
Definitely. Yeah. I think everyone needs a little bit of motivation from that endless.
Yes.
So I think we have a few more to go, right?
Yes. Yeah. Let's jump in. Okay, we have Dark Nexus and Belgian underground techno. Okay, cool. Okay, I press play and let's jump in. Yeah, probably it's enough.
It was a little bit too much. I mean, a great example is the spectrum analyzer you have there is a perfect representation.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let me give some, because like technically this was a mess.
Yeah.
On my monitor speaker here, if I pressed mono, the track simply collapsed.
From like breathing issues.
Like elements disappeared, bass disappeared. The track got we lost high end. So many things. It simply collapsed in mono. It sounds thin. It sounds harsh. It's overlapping like crazy. Elements don't work with each other. Like from the harmonic kind of view, it sounded weird. It sounded washed out. This track has a lot of technical problems. But let me hear yours, because I could get mad here.
For me, the first thing I want to say is that I think that the first thing that I get off when I listen to music, for me personally, I mean, it becomes really hard, I think, the moment you start producing music, to really enjoy music, because you start to analyze everything. But for me, the way I like to listen to music is I always try to imagine a track, like we talked about earlier, like a thought, right? So when I listen to this, it sounds like mental clutter to me. You know, it just sounds like a ton of thoughts that can't be put into one thing. You know, the track started off like we went in like full gas. You know, it's like when you sit in a car and it's a full throttle, you know? And I was like, whoa, just pulled back in the seat for a bit. I'm like, okay, we give it a shot. We have a listen, and it's just going, and it's like the same loop again and again and again. And then when the chords came in, I'm like, whoa, okay, very, you know, unexpected turn of events. And I'm not sure how I felt about it. I mean, to an extent, the chords were nice, but then you had the metallic, like, FM synth in the background, and then you have like this chord on top, and you're like, but how are they related? You know,
they were not working together.
Yeah, it's not at all. So, and just on the analyzer, when I look at, for me, what I found to be like the nicest balance, especially when it comes to like more groove based and more in your face kind of style of techno, is I feel like your lows should always be a tad bit higher than your like mids and highs, but then you can't have them all at the same level. Like this was pretty much all at the same level.
Yeah, it sounded very flat.
The mids were like, the mids were overwhelming, you know? I was just having a listen. I couldn't tell if I'm listening to hi-hat, if I'm listening to, I don't know, the synth line, if I'm listening to the FM synth in the background just fighting its way with the chord, you know? It was really messy. And I was hoping, you know, my opinion would have changed as the track progressed, but it was both flat in mixing and very flat in arrangement. It just felt like he did the track to do a track with zero, you know.
I mean, I could hear the energy. The energy was not bad. Like I could feel like he was like right? And that's cool. And the elements by itself also were not bad, but they didn't work together. Like they were in solo working pretty nice, maybe.
Yeah.
But when you put them together, they were not friends at all. But like not friends. They were fighting. They were like, go away, you know, like it was a constant fight in the frequency spectrum going on with this one.
I mean, it felt like you said, it was like two different tracks. And for me, that's a big issue, because it feels like mental clutter. It's like you want to do so many things. It's like when you're a kid in a candy store, you know, you want everything and you think like, ooh, because it sounds good, again, on its own, let me drop it into the track, it will make my track sound better. But that's not the case. It could be the worst and the shittiest sample that does better for your, like, and benefits for your track rather than that OG, you know, holy grail sample which you thought was great to drop in the track. So it felt like he wanted to do a lot of things, but because he wanted to do all those things, it just wasn't sitting right.
Yeah, sadly, but for the artist, I don't know if he is with us in the stream. Just don't give up, right? Just make more music.
Try to ease up on the harsh frequencies, I think, because like the listening experience could have been way more enjoyable had the mids and highs not been so harsh, because they were like pushed maximum harsh. You know, it really took out the taste of listening to electronic music. You know, it was just a bit bitter, and that I think is such a mixing thing, because the mixing and the mix down of a track can really make or break a track. If you can't mix the elements that you pick properly, forget even picking the right elements. If you just can't mix them properly, it ruins the listening experience.
And there was the bass was so thin, and the mids were like totally overhyped. Yeah, and the high end was harsh, and then also smeared, like probably compression issue or limiter or whatever. Everything was smearing, like in the time domain. Okay. We simply jump into the next track. Let's jump into the next. Let's hear some music. The track simply needs work. It needs a lot of work. Okay, I mute myself here before I go crazy here. Okay. Probably I have to be a little bit mean today. I mean, the cover
Okay, I feel
the
like
cover is great. The cover is great.
I might have to join you on that because, yeah, it's there are definitely a lot of talking points. I mean, there is something before we like dive really deep into it. There's something that it's just like a pattern that's been standing out, and I don't know if it's something that is so prominent. I've noticed it as well a lot in, for example, like when I do some one-on-ones, I notice it as well with some artists I work with. But it feels like everybody is trying to fight for making everything louder. I don't know what is this new obsession with having sounds just be in your face. You know, everything is like there is pretty much zero dynamic range in the track. You know, like I'm looking at also the spectrum. I don't know, is that I'm like looking and it's just flat, and it's like you pushed your mid so much. So because you pushed your mid so much, you had to push your bass forward. Now you have your bass masking the kick, and then you have this bass that's just sitting on top of like zero blend, just sitting on top of like mids that are just screaming, and a vocal that's just, because you're suffering with this, you think, oh, let me fix it by making this louder, and then it's a lot. Like, I think for me, I'm barely boosting things. I always find myself cutting things more than I am boosting.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
New obsession, or what it's, if it's, I feel like it might be that a lot of artists aren't just, I think for me, what really took my music to the next level and made me understand music more was listening to my music in a good space, in a proper studio. The moment I heard my music in a proper studio, then I understood, oh my God, I've been doing everything wrong this whole time. Then after I built a proper studio, and I would like say I didn't have the best monitors to start with. I had like KRKs, the most well-known to go to, you know, but the thing is, my room was so well treated that with just some minor adjustments, they sounded good enough. You know, I was able to do a decent job with them. I think just listen to your music, even if it is to rent out a studio every other week, like produce on headphones at home if you can't have monitors or have a studio at home or can't afford the studio. Sit down at home, build your tracks every other week, get some studio time in a proper studio, and just listen to your music. Because if you're not listening to your music, if you can't hear what the best way, then you don't know what you're doing, you know? And if you can't differentiate, then I think that's a problem. You know, if you already have a good studio and then you're having these issues, then you need to just, I think, work a little bit more on cutting things down and mixing from like 0 down or from 0 up. You know, don't boost anything first. Try to mix with things as is, and then you can add a bit of boosting here and there, which I like to do with gain staging. You know, instead of actually boosting the volumes, just with some saturation. I think if you're using Ableton, the best way to do that is with just the amp on the return channel. And you can do some beautiful gain staging with some light harmonics, just a little bit, you know, just to push the sound a bit more. I do it on my hats to push the sound a bit more, but like everything else, you want to have a nice, like it's always, with dance music, the kick and bass always has to be in the front. Everything else follows. With everything I'm hearing, the kick is the last thing I hear. You know, it's just been, in terms of mix, I think that's what's been lacking. And yeah, that's something that this artist definitely needs to work on. I think mix, in terms of like creativity and like the sounds, it had a flow to it. I think if it was mixed better, it might have been a better listening experience. But because I'm such a picky person when it comes to mix, when a mix is bad, for me, immediately the track becomes like that. Oh, yeah, I can't justify it because I don't know how it's supposed to sound if it sounded good. I can't imagine it because what they gave me to work with is, you know, so I can't imagine anything else. So I think, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing, kind of good thing, was that the track gave was like happy music, right?
And it had a flow.
It was a
good
happy
flow.
track.
It was,
The bass line was not bad, but way too loud and then too stiff. Like simply just a loop going on. It sounds a little bit like probably a beginner work where the artist was not sure if he goes in this direction or this direction.
yeah.
It feels like I go into happy house. No, I want maybe tech house, or I want this. No, I want this, and he couldn't decide. And and then technically the elements, the balance was not working. It was thin again. It was harsh. Again, very smeared. So probably again a so-called self-master, where you simply slam the track. you slam. Yeah, many people simply slam the tracks with ozone or like limiters.
I think a limiter, just to take it, if you put like, for me, I would just put like a limiter or like a glue compressor and just add some makeup, just to take it close to zero.
To get an idea.
Add a bit of loudness. I mean, the rest of it, because so long as the mix is good, the mastering engineer doesn't do so much in terms of cleaning it up. Fixing the mix, right? He's just cleaning it up and adding some volume. So if already you deliver a relatively clean mix, then if you just add a bit of volume, and then if you want to test your track in a club or something, just add some gain. If it sounds good, if it's been mixed down well enough, adding some gain, it's not going to be drastically different. You'll get an idea. You know, if you're sending out your demos to have like, don't shit, you know, just, if anything, just take it up to zero, and the closer it is to pre-master, I'm better off turning up the volume than I am, you know, turning it down, because like I'm sick of hearing it, you know. So I think just let it be as is, and don't slam it with a bunch of different racks as well, like, because there is no set thing, I think, as well, to like mastering. The same way there is no set thing to mixing. Every track is different. You can't use a rack that someone made that are like, oh yes, this is a hard techno rack, and assume because you make hard techno that immediately this mastering rack is going to solve all your problems and you don't need an engineer anymore. That's not the case. The track that it was used on was different, your track is different, the way you mix is different. There's so many factors being overlooked. So we can go
and before we go into the next track, because I'm also a mastering engineer since many years, and I master a lot of artists, and I master my own music as well. And I can say that I do the mix down in a way that the track has already an inner loudness. So that means in the mastering, like, I would say I wouldn't basically, when I do mastering and I use a limiter, 2 dB of limiter is almost too much in my own music. It's maybe 1 dB of little bit catching peaks. That's it. Then it means the mixdown is completely balanced. Everything is in its place, and you simply cut off a little bit. You don't need to slam the track onto the wall and then watch it being slammed. I mean,
I think this loudness is very popular now. It's also
it's very popular.
In music, this like bounce music, this bouncy like trancey techno stuff that everybody is like, this weird new genres that are showing up, you know, and like the more harder techno, this like weird evolution child of like business techno and trance, you know, this is what I call it. It's like a weird combination. They feel like loudness is everything. You know, it's like everybody just wants tinnitus. You know, they're like, let's go, let's have this blasting and just Reese bass in your face and just make sure your eardrums blow up. So it's
I mean, I like loud, I like bass, but it has to be in balance.
yeah, exactly.
I would say let's jump into the next, and then we have one more, and then we have done it. But it's super nice to talk to you anyway. It's really nice because you know what you do. That's very nice.
It means a lot coming from someone who actually knows what they're doing. To come and to hear that I might know what I'm doing, that means really a lot. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. So we can,
let's jump in. Yeah. I stop here because I don't think things change so much at the end, and we have time is running. First thing, actually, I think this track, when it comes to texture, this was the best track of tonight for me. Like in terms of sound design and texture. There was something that got me like really like, ooh. Like I was listening to this little tiny variations, and this was a good example of not doing too much, but doing enough to keep you like interested. What he is doing next? What's happening here? And
I think
very serious. Yeah, nice.
for me, it was, I think, by far the best out of all of the tracks we've listened to so far. You know,
So we are on the same wavelength here.
I have some hope for the last track as well, but up until now, it's this has to be by far the guy who knows his shit the most. You know, like when I look at the spectrum, I see a beautiful dynamic range. You know, the kick is right in the front. You have everything flowing, especially in this style, which in like the deeper hypnotic stuff, the hats need to be more in the background. It's just the low end and the mids need to shine, you know, and the mids not so much. They don't need to be overpowering. I just have, I think, one or two tips I would give this artist. Their low end is really solid, but the only one thing I would say is don't be scared to cut your sub a bit more. Okay, I'm a big, like, for me, I usually like to cut my subs between 45 to 50 hertz, and I have a big 72 dB cut, you know, like quite a harsh cut. And I think that really helps to glue the kick and bass together, you know, because I always look at it like this, like my image of a solid kick and bass is to have the main boominess of the low end to come from the kick, and the movement to come from the sub. So in reality, you can't really hear the sub. It's not moving the subwoofers that much. Rather, when you combine it with the kick, the way you perceive it, your mind tricks your body that you are feeling it. But in reality, all you're doing is you're hearing it. It's just there. But because it's adding shape to the boominess of the kick, you feel like, oh, they're in a like a group and they're moving at the same time and they're shifting at the same time. So I would say just cut the low end a bit more and just maybe bring it down a few dB, just a tad bit, like a couple points, and it would be perfect. That and that mid synth. The mid synth, there was one that came in quite late, right? The one that kind of up the intensity, it was a bit too loud. I think that bringing them down just a tad bit would make it sit in better with the track. But apart from that, really good track, like well done. Well done.
Yeah, I can, yeah, yes. Something, are you really cutting with such a high Q?
Yeah.
Are you aware of what an EQ is doing to the face?
To an extent. To an extent.
Okay.
Yeah,
probably I can teach you some things, because
definitely.
doing this, like for me, the highest Q factor for in the mixdown is 12 dB. Everything else is completely fucking up the face of. Okay, let's say. A little excursion into EQs. Every EQ, whatever you do, any step you do with an EQ is, and that's the how EQs work in hardware and software, is they change the micro timing. They change the phase. So basically, let's say you do a cut at 50 hertz, right? And you think, okay, I'm just cutting stuff away in the low end. No. You simply Also, when it comes to the phase response, there's like on the cut is the highest micro timing change. So you can use this also to your advantage in a way, because the way where you cut is the frequencies in front of the cut are coming first. You simply push them in the timing first, but then you simply smear the sound away. And if you do a cut like at 50 and with a very strong high Q, you have almost a few completely 360 degree. You rip the sound apart, and that's okay if you know what you do. But simply you smear everything away, and then if it makes sense, if you don't have too many tracks and sounds, it's not, and you divide the sounds so they are not overlapped, but you make a cut at 50, but you change the sound timing wise up to almost 10,000 hertz. It's not just a cut. I could show you this with a tool called Plugin Doctor. It's when you, that's what I said. Less is more. If you really understand what's going on, it's like mind blown. Like, fuck.
Definitely would be interesting.
And you can work against this if, let's say, you make a cut, do a little bump before the cut. This is making the phase response flatter, so the sound will be more intact. Just making a hard cut is the worst thing you can do to a sound. Like, it's the worst thing. It's like you murder the sound. I would say you are a serial killer to the sounds. Anyway, if it sounds good, it's good. That's the rule.
I mean, yeah, for me, it was never about, like, because I never got a chance to learn the technical stuff. I just went for it. I found, like, it helped me to have much cleaner low ends. Like, it just helped to glue stuff more. Obviously, cutting at 50 has been a rare case. It's always between, like, 45, 46 hertz. That's usually where I have the cut. But it's a genuinely harsh cut on the lows, and then for the highs, it really depends on how I'm cutting and how much.
Yeah, we can talk another time, and I simply explain and show you if you learn to listen to and then you can use this to your advantage, because this is like people are saying that my tracks have this 3D aspect in it. And this comes because I'm using my low cuts in a way, because I know if I'm doing the cut here, the frequencies above come a little bit first, and then the upper frequencies come back. So you can simply create a full 3D spectrum just with low cuts.
Really cool.
You can create.
Definitely need to talk about this afternoon too, definitely.
Yeah,
because these things.
It's amazing if you understand the simplicity of this. You can be, without even using any reverbs or anything, you can be even 3D and mono. Nice. Just by understanding the phase response topic. But okay, we jump into the last track of. So this was pretty nice, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's
we end the stream off with a really solid track.
Yeah, I mean, the cover looks nice already. Phases. Joseph. Okay, there. Let's jump into it. Okay. Okay. That's a difficult one. Yeah, difficult one. And
I was hoping we end on a good note, but
yeah, the break was completely useless. It made no sense at all for me. Like everything I say is personal, right? It's completely subjective. The break was making no sense. The mixdown was having problems a lot. And I was asking myself, okay, what? The artist want to tell me something, but I think I cannot understand his language. Somehow I was like, what is he telling me? What does he want? I have no idea. Maybe you understood him a bit better.
I mean,
I had problems with this one.
what I'm guessing, just based on like my perspective on what he was trying to kind of project when he did this, is I feel like he put it phases, as in the track goes into phases where it switches up. I can kind of maybe pick up something like that, but the mix was really bad. Like, especially in the low end, it was like,
Yeah,
it was a
very
mess.
boomy.
Yeah, and I feel like the break, the reason why it felt so at the point was because the transitions weren't smooth. If you want to do a track which has a lot of things happening simultaneously and a lot of changes happening throughout the track, for me, a good and solid techno artist, actually, there are two in the back of my head that are really, really good at doing this like multi kind of genre style of techno where they like mush a bunch of different things into a track. One of them is Exos, and he's also a very old school producer. And another one is Robert, I think Robert something as well. I forgot. He does like trance, and he also had like a bit of trance and like this harder stuff. And they have these like insane transitions in the track where it's like a new track is there, but it's done so fluidly. It's done so smooth, and it's one of those things where it's like a double-edged sword. It can either be really cool or it can just ruin your whole track. You know, if it has no, again, if it's not fluid and it's not flowing, it's like, again, you're forcing the track. You're like, hey, track, do this because I want you to do this. You know, to an extent you can do that, but it's a track. I also like to think music has a mind of its own, you know? Like you can, to a length, you can control it, but to other length, it also wants to do its own thing. So he's trying to do too much at once, and he wasn't, like, they weren't successful doing it. But it was a solid attempt. I think just, it's all about honing it in. I think making music is all about just practice, trial and error. You're gonna make so much bad music and so much music that just has a lot of work that needs to be done until you start making music that it's like, okay, you start to take yourself a bit seriously. I mean, for me, it wasn't until I reached a point where there are certain tracks that I made that, if I'm being really honest, if anybody asks me how I made them, I can't tell them. I don't know how I just made it. You know, I was in the zone.
Yeah.
I was making it, and something happened. How I made it, I don't know. So, and sometimes I listen and I'm like, wow, I made that? You know, it's like we're completely disconnect. Like, that's really important, and it takes some time. Like, it can click with you like this, or it can take years to fucking click with you. And I think if you're someone who is super passionate about making music, then you don't care how long it takes. You just enjoy it. You know, if of course you could say the latter. If you're fully dependent on music, then I mean, it took me doing music and working 3 jobs until I reached a point where I can say right now I'm doing okay with just music. You know, like it takes time, it takes struggle, but you know, if you're really passionate about it, you'll be patient. I think it's just about being patient and just keep doing it, repeating it. You know, Bruce Lee said it in a really nice way. He said, "Fear not a man who knows 1,000 kicks, but fear a man who practiced the same kick 1,000 times." It's the same logic, you know.
Yeah, true.
And I think, yeah, someone on the comment mentioned the other artist, Robert Matus. Yeah,
Robert Natus.
he's like super crazy and like, and you know, this is what kind of puts me off of new music, and this is why I kind of don't listen to a lot of new techno, which is a bad thing. I mean, occasionally I'll listen to artists I like, but most of the time I avoid listening to it is because I listen to music made in the 90s and in the early stages where they had quarter of the equipment we have, and it's just mind blowing. You listen and you're like in awe, you know? Music like that really hits the spot for me. And when I listen to that and then come into new music and I'm just underwhelmed, I'm like, then what did we do? It's a shame, you know? We should be ashamed of ourselves as the newer generation of artists, that we can't say that what we have now with the technology we have now, we're not doing that better.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about
Yes.
building whatever was left for you, you know? Like, build it better. The artists back in the day, they bought it to a certain level. We, as the newer generation, have to take that and take it to an even higher level for the generation after us. Not look back and say, hey, music was better. But unfortunately, this goes towards all genres. It's not a thing that's prominent in just techno music or electronic music. It's all genres. I think the quality of music has deteriorated. You know, it's just literally disgusting. All I can remember, like the best memories I had with music were when I was a kid and my mom would put on like, you know, different R&B songs of like the early 90s and 2000s era, where it was just like pure soul in music, you know, and now it's just sadly brain rot, you know. Within that you find good music, but it's such a needle in a haystack type of aspect.
I mean, with over 100,000 releases per day, that's what we are dealing with.
Yeah.
It's a flood. It's noise. It's simply noise, and then what I said, people don't take risks anymore. You have so many great tools, unbelievable crazy things you can do, and then they don't use them. and also something I noticed when, let's say, we started in the 90s, or for me it was like, we do the music of the future. It was always this sci-fi. We looked into a bright, technological, advanced future, right? And these days, the people look backwards. They don't look into the future anymore. They look into the past and look like it was a super romantic time. Yes, it was romantic because we had no clue what we have done. We simply had fun doing it, right? And we took risks because nobody told us. Or let's say it like this: when I started music, the guys that I knew, they played in bands, and they told me, Robert, you just press buttons. This is not music. This is just machines doing something. And I said, no, fuck you. I love it. You know, and I miss this kind of future punk thing in a way, and it's especially in techno, where techno is now one phrase, one bar loop, 5 minutes, probably an FM synth. And then, okay, yeah, you're serious underground techno. No, it's not underground and it's not serious. It's boring.
I mean, that's definitely true, but I think people are also just tired of exploring because now it's already been like
It's hard to explore these days if you get bombarded with social media.
bombarded with social media and bombarded with you're being spoon-fed content, you know, because we live in a world of like heavy consumerism, you know, from left and right, all these millions of sample packs, millions of different synths that do the same thing, you know, they all do the same thing. Like it's all just about, ooh, this is nice, let me get this, and you're just overwhelming yourself without giving yourself the chance to actually explore things. And yeah, just start everything, do everything yourself, and just kind of figure stuff out, enjoy it. First and foremost, enjoy it, and not just do it content, you know.
Yes.
That's unfortunately, the world has become just a giant ad, and we're all just trying to build content, you know. But that's how society is, and society reflects on our architecture as well as our music, you know, and art.
And there's like completely mind-blowing, amazing music coming out these days from new artists. There is still amazing things where people take risks, but you have to find them, and it's difficult in this giant. I mean, we are almost like in a war of information all day long. As soon as you take your mobile phone into your hand and open it, it's like, what?
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That is definitely true. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But you try as an artist, I think, to just stay true to yourself, and as a human being as well. Just stay and put your efforts into whatever you love, whether if it's making music, whatever genre you love. If you want to do something different, try to make a statement in it rather than trying to change it, trying to, I don't know, do something that's already been done. Always try to look for new things. I mean, stay true to yourself as a person. Don't just be a robot, you know?
Yes.
Don't look at making music as a gateway to becoming famous. I think it's just a lot of people want to become famous. Everybody wants to be an influencer. I think that's the issue.
Yeah,
So
and it's at the same time, we are forced to do all this stuff because right now is, if people don't see you, you simply don't exist.
That's true.
And that's horrible. Back in the days, people are telling me, Robert, I was always buying your records. I had no idea how you look. I had no idea where you come from. I just heard I bought the records because I loved it. And these days you have to post and do this and this and this. And we are forced to this. And we are really simply forced to do this. But anyway, was a great stream with you. Let's turn on the voting for the people. Paul, I start the voting. Okay, so, oh, you need the link to the voting, right? Oh, guys, where's my support here? Okay, one moment. Usually I get a support that helps me to let the people vote, but he's not in the chat. Okay, people, vote for the tracks for tonight. The winner will get something from the SINEE team. Probably this is the link, the right link. I hope so. Please give your vote for the tracks. I simply play every track for a few seconds. I just jump into them and yeah, please vote, please. So, guys, vote now. Vote. Is there any vote? Oh fuck, I gave a vote. Okay. Is the link working? By the way, I'm not sure. I should have help from the SINEE team. They're usually getting the right. Can you? Hello, hello, everybody. Can you vote on this link? Is this possible? Yes, right? Yeah, it's working. It's working. Okay, so give us a vote for the tracks that you really love. Okay, I jump into through the tracks. This was the very first. FM bass. This was the second one. Actually, not bad. Both are not bad. Okay, third track was like this. To give you some help. This melodic techno was the third track. Then we had this one with too many ideas into one track. Then this one where I think it needs a lot of work on the technical side. Then we had the funny kindergarten techno. It will work on in a kindergarten children birthday party. Kids will love this track.
I think you're muted. Just checking on the chat
Oh, the
now.
music is muted? Ah, fuck. So I was just talking to myself. Sorry, guys. Okay, this is the track number 7. Wow, we love the texture quite a lot. Sorry. Okay, and track number 8. Probably it's enough how I talked about the tracks. Let's simply vote for it. So my personal why I don't see 7. 7 is okay. It's interesting. 7 has 10 votes already.
I think 7 was also the winner
The one we loved. Kind of. Okay. So the community, it's almost clear, right? Okay, I give you 3 more minutes to vote, please. 3 minutes. 3. And then we will give the winner.
I think the number 7 intro sphere already should be a releasing artist. So definitely, I think just work hard. You're already there most of the way. Just work on making the tracks more creative, adding a bit more finesse. You can never have it, and just fine tune your mixing, and that will just take it to the next level. I think he's already like 98% there. The last 2% are always the hardest, but once you hit those, I think it just gets the track. It takes everything to the right point. So I think that's what I would give, like, small piece of advice from my end.
And actually, the first 2 tracks were kind of nice. Well, why they don't get 2 votes here? The first one was kind of a nice warm-up introduction into techno.
It was, but I think it's just
it missed something. Yeah.
it felt a little bit generic. That's the
Yeah.
unfortunate, the sadness. But that's the I think the struggle techno has. Like it's one of those. It comes from a generative perspective, and it's generative music, so it feels like it's really easy to get stuck in this loop where your music becomes super generic because it's always the same fundamentals.
True.
You know, but I think it's always just good to stick to the fundamentals while leaving some space to explore as an artist. You know, respect the fundamentals, Like if it's a 4 on the floor, do the 4 on the floor, but do some things that aren't fundamental to make your track different. So I think, yeah.
I think the winner is clear. It's clear. Okay, so I would say Introsphere with Recharge is the winner of the evening. Congratulations. Yeah, I think this is simply clear, right? Yeah, 2 thumbs up. I think there's really potential in this track. So if it a little bit more work and you have probably a good release on your hand.
Definitely agree.
I would say, right? Yeah, please write an email to sign and show that. Make a screenshot of this and write an email to sign, and you get the prize. I have no idea what the prize is, but you will get a prize. And anyway, we have done the show perfectly. So thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Denny. It was super nice to
Thank
do this
for
with
having
you.
me, and I hope I wasn't too harsh. And yeah, I hope that this was useful for everybody listening in, and for all younger artists coming up, and for something in the future, you know.
Don't give up to anyone. And like I said in the very beginning, every feedback is valuable, because usually you don't get any feedback. Or, I mean, your best friends will always say, or your mom will say, yeah, it's nice.
That's what I always try to tell everyone. Like, you never ask, especially you never ask the people closest to you, because they're always going to try to make you, you know, feel good. So it's always, But it was a pleasure listening to, all these different types of music, and like the different styles and people's approach, as well as getting some great information from you as well. So we definitely need to talk more about the EQ.
Sure.
Yeah, but it was an absolute pleasure, and I hope everyone
same
has
for
a great
me.
weekend. And I hope you have a great weekend as well, Robert. And
Yeah, thank you.
if you guys
And
haven't
too.
already, and you need some help as well with your tracks and just some inspiration, feel free to check out my masterclass, which is also out on SINEE.
Yes, that's the perfect last words. Guys, get his masterclass. I'm pretty sure, from my point of view, he knows what he's doing. Beside the EQ.
Check it out. I mean, maybe you'd see where my point is.
Yeah, maybe I have to see it. So, to the stream. Thanks for being with us, and see you next Friday as well.